Happy New Year. Yeah, so I was going to be here 2 weeks ago, and so it would have been very early Happy New Year, but still Happy New Year nonetheless. So, I know this is a time where a lot of people take a lot of action. New Year's resolutions, new goals, new things they want in their life. And for many of us, it's a time to see who won the national championship game in football. And so obviously that was this Monday if you don't keep up with it. So I grew up in Alabama, and I grew up in a place where it's really built into the culture. There's Alabama, and obviously we won a bunch of titles, but even growing up, we weren't winning, but it was still a really big part of our culture. And some of the biggest day of the year was the Alabama-Auburn football game. It was a huge rivalry, and I've got a lot of great memories of that, just being a kid, sitting by an open fire, watching a game, and having some good food with friends and family. And so it was us versus them, Alabama versus Auburn, red jerseys versus Auburn, the blue jerseys. And, after college, I went to Seattle for a couple of years. I got a lot of interest in new things, and I was never that big on football, but I watched it because friends and family did. And it was part of just the culture of growing up there in Alabama. So when I came back here, and I've lived here in Atlanta ever since, I was there in Seattle for a couple of years, but I came back here, and then I went to visit family. I saw family, I saw friends, and I was watching a game with them, some of my old friends I went to high school with. And it reminded me of what it's like to be there, watching that game. The screams of joy when there's a touchdown, and those little agonies of defeat when the other team scores, or even when the referee gives a call we don't want to hear. And I remember looking at my friend that I'd known for many years, protesting, then yelling at the TV. And I kind of smiled, and then it went on and on. And then I'm like, what's going on here? And then I started to laugh a little bit. Nobody else was laughing. And I remember what it's like to be in that passion of who's going to win, us versus them. And I started thinking, this is a little much. And then it took me a couple of years to see that in the same way I was making him wrong for looking at a screen saying us versus them, I was also creating a dichotomy of what I thought was the right thing to do versus what he would do. His interest was the football game, and mine wasn't anymore. So I recognized that in that moment, I was creating a dichotomy. I was creating separation from my old friend, rather than just supporting who he was, regardless of whether I had the same protests or the same passion. And in that moment, a couple of years after watching the game, it just hit me. That's when I had that moment of a little bit of waking up to that. And it came to me not in a deep thought, but just like this moment of opening, something deeper, something beyond thinking. In this space of awareness, I kind of just dropped into it and drifted into it, and dropping and drifting almost like a bit of a dream. And so today I want to talk to you about my perspective of a critical core Buddhist concept called the middle way. And the middle way is really originally taught as a view between two extremes. And the Buddha once said, I teach only the causes of suffering and the end of suffering. That's the teaching. And really everything else is to lead to the end of suffering. The cause of suffering and the end of suffering. So out of the entire forest, here's a handful of leaves, and that's the teaching. And so this middle way, though, isn't a compromise between this extreme and that extreme. I'll take a little of this and a little of that. It's really a different way altogether. It's like stepping out, stepping back. And so, even though this is a core Buddhist principle, all of these Buddhist principles are ones that can show up in our life every day. So they can be very practical, very grounded, and help everybody every day. And so I want to share my perspective of the middle way, which has a lot of connotations. The Buddha taught it in different talks. It came up in different ways. What does the middle way really mean? A few different perspectives we can view this middle way. And I want to share it from my perspective in a way that's practical. It's grounded. It can show up with us every single day. And particularly, as of recent, whatever recent means, I've really been thinking about this a little bit. I've been feeling it, particularly for the last, a couple years, but last year for sure. And it's just been sitting with me, and something's been telling me to look at this a little bit more. We live, right now, the middle way can really impact us because we live in a modern time where we have these. And when we have these phones and these devices, I'm trying to look at what the weather is, and I get a news article come through. Or by default, I'm addicted to social media, and I'm talking to someone, my thumb opens Facebook or whatever. I don't have any of the rest of them because I got it. Facebook's enough for me. Right? And so when influencers and news, when they want to get our attention, a lot of times, I think they've leaned into what psychologists teach us. That as human beings, we have a built-in negative bias, actually. I didn't know that. I heard that a few years ago. And psychologists say that as a species, traditionally, before we had the safety of our houses and our shelter, traditionally, we were in a time when we were in a kind of a rugged environment. And maybe the saber-toothed tiger was going to jump out of the bushes. Who knows? But we're always scanning our environment to see what's safe. And the people who really get everyone's attention knows that because they start with a negative bias. They really want to get you in there. They want to draw your attention in. So a lot of what we see comes from a negative bias. Clickbait, basically. Whether it be news or social media or what have you. And so when we do that, we immediately go into what is maybe, jarring. Maybe a little bit negative, maybe a little bit of too much, but it gets our attention. And as a result, anger and outrage often spread faster than truth. It spreads faster than understanding. And so we need to be aware of that. And sometimes we can be rewarded for taking sides rather than listening. But even before now, even in generations past, think about your grandparents or whomever, I think it's a human condition that sometimes we get in arguments, and halfway through the argument, we forget what the argument's about, but we're in it to win it at that point. It's a football game. It's us versus them, and we forgot what the original argument was. I've heard so many people, we got in a fight. What is it about? I don't remember. It was something silly, but it really blew up, right? So really, a middle way can help us with both these things that we can face every day. But really, what is the middle way? I'm telling you why we might want it, but what is it? So originally, it was taught as the basically avoiding the extremes of indulgence and self-denial. So as we're taught, the Buddha grew up and was born as a prince in a great palace. I mean, you can imagine this image of someone who's, want food, so then there's immediately food there. Every indulgence you could want. But then he had an awakening that there was He went outside the walls and he saw this suffering and sickness, things that always have been shielded from his sight. He had the perfect environment that some people would think is a perfect environment. And he saw suffering. And he wanted to go out and understand it. And ultimately, he became an ascetic, a person who engages in extreme practices, including not really eating. He ate maybe a grain of rice a day, like almost into a very frail state. And eventually someone offered him just a little bit of food, just a little bit of nutrients, and he took it. And he realized that both of these extremes, overindulgence and self-denial, weren't the way. You see, it was the middle way, not because I wanted to compromise, I'll take a little of this and a little of that, but it was a skillful path. It was a skillful path. And he used a metaphor for what the middle way is. In the same way with a string instrument, like a guitar, I'll use a guitar. We don't want to over-tighten the string or it'll break, and we don't want to under-tighten it. But instead we want to get it the right tightness so we have the note we want. A B note isn't a compromise between an A and a C. It's a B note. It's a different vibration, a different frequency. One that allows us to play the song. Play the song to get to the end of the song? No, just to play the song. Our minds are like tuning forks. They can resonate with what's around us or what we choose to tune them to. And what arises within us is what we have conditioned previously. And also, the environment we create and what we put out often can influence the people around us. So, if I reach out with anger, someone else might respond with anger. That's the vibration I'm putting out. And so, though none of us are really responsible for other people's actions, when I have a certain action or belief, I condition myself, I condition my mind, and I'm not responsible, but it also can influence other people. So my thought and my state impacts me, it impacts the people around me, and then when they go out elsewhere, that energy can carry out. So what do I want to condition? What tuning fork do I wish to hold? So sometimes it's not necessarily about what's the ultimate truth, but instead what supports ourselves and others to step out of and see through anger, greed, and delusion. And to do that, I believe, is compassion. Now, in this tradition, there are lots of types of meditation in the world. You ask 1,000 people, you get 2,000 answers. But here, I find a lot of peace and helpfulness in the way we practice here. Because first, we drop down in the body, the center, and we cultivate samatha. It's calmness, coolness, comfort. And with that calmness, vipassana, or insight, can naturally arise. It naturally arises. And in that state, I would say sometimes, but really every time, thoughts float by as I sit. And that just happens. But as I'm calming, and I really look into those thoughts, I can see and really feel these emotional arisings. I can see my responses. What happened a week ago, years ago, what's going to happen tomorrow. See, I can look into the future because I know what's going to happen tomorrow. Wink, wink. I think I know what's going to happen tomorrow. But then I have those thoughts that float by, and then I have the emotion that comes with it. But as I settle in more and more, it goes from I know what's going to happen to then I can feel the emotion. Oh, that's anger. That's maybe a little worry or anxiety. Am I going to do great tomorrow on that thing I've got to do? But then if we look at even deeper, in the same way I'm judging about what will happen tomorrow, then I see, oh, there's an emotion, then I'm just judging that as anger. It's really just a sensation. Maybe it's warmth. But under that, it's just still a sensation. And I find that to be helpful to tap into those sensations, even getting beyond the labeling, because there's a concept called Vedana. Sanskrit word, and it means the initial emotional arising that occurs before your awareness comes in. So, I have a question. Has anyone ever had an experience where something happened and you just felt yourself have an immediate reaction to it? Maybe somebody said something, you were just really elated. That's amazing. Or they said something and you were angry. I can't believe they did that to me. Maybe someone cut me off in traffic. Or maybe somebody said something that really hurt my feelings. In that moment, it's not, oh, I heard that and I analyzed it and then I felt it in my body. It's like the first awareness is my body clenched, or my body reacted, my body responded in some way. That initial emotional response before you're even really aware, that's the Vedana. So what's the antidote? Because if we take on that initial emotional rising and immediately react, reactions when we don't have we lose our choice. But if we can give even just a split second of a pause, we can respond. And the samatha is really the antidote. The calmness and the coolness in the meditation, in my experience, is what gives us, even if it's a half second, just that brief little pause, this little pause button between the stimulus and the response. So the samatha, the calming and the cooling, is really that element, that doorway that gets us into the clear seeing, that gets us into the moment where we can feel, recognize, interpret, not attach, and then respond rather than react. I also find that in moments when I'm living out in the world and I didn't catch it, I also find another antidote is compassion. So stepping in the middle way, what if I have compassion? It's the easiest way to get rid of clinging views. Knowing that if someone is acting out of some way I don't care for, out of anger, or I disagree with them, or they're being hurtful to other people, in the same way I recognize my reactivity, I can say, man, can I have compassion for myself? Can I have compassion for them? Not necessarily to agree. The compassion allows me to cool myself so I can maintain the energy that promotes clear seeing. Oftentimes, we're going to meet people that just have a different view than we do. And that's very true. It's very true. And we can see that very much. And, here, this is, obviously, there's a Buddha behind me here. And there are many times when even monks have been giving talks and talked about different traditions in the world. I've heard people come up here and speak about their background. And so I don't have any reservation in talking about how I grew up in a church, in Church of Christ. And there's one story that I find is really helpful. It's one I remember from being a kid, growing up in a church. And it's a story about Jesus. And it reminds me of the middle way. And the more I hear these stories, I'm like, all these are really, they're almost the same story. So many of these traditions, so many of these stories. And the story goes that Jesus was there at a temple. He was being brought to a temple, and a lady was brought in that the religious leaders there thought she'd done something wrong, so bad that she should be punished. She should be killed. She should be stoned to death. Or they pick up stones and they throw it at him, and that was a death sentence. And basically, Jesus was there, and somehow he intervened, or they asked him, "What do you think should be done here?" He's like, "No, let's not stone this lady." And they ask, "Oh, is what she done? Is it okay with you?" So there you go. There's a dichotomy. Either it's the right thing to do, and go free, enjoy your life, or she should be stoned. But instead of answering and jumping into that dichotomy, jumping into that argument, he said, "Who's without sin? You can throw the first stone." And then everyone turned and walked away. So, I find it very important right now, as we look around, to be able to step out of certain dichotomies. There's so many. There's so many powerful ones. And it doesn't mean we agree with one side or another. It doesn't mean we're going to pick sides one way or another. But what's the right thing to do? What's the skillful thing to do? What's the compassionate thing to do? What's the helpful thing to do? I think sometimes just stepping out. In this way that Jesus did this, there were so many stories about the Buddha. The Brahmins of the time came and asked the Buddha, "Is there a self? Is there not a self?" And he skillfully answered in a very similar way. He's like, "How is it helpful to talk about this?" Basically. Very, very highly paraphrased there. But it was a way to say, wait a minute, is this debate skillful or not? Is continuing to talk about this, is this skillful? So then the question is, how do we do this? How do we hit our pause button? Because we can sit on a cushion and then we can go out in the world. And they're both related, but the question is, how do we do it? And I find, for myself, I'll share with you my perspective. Just sharing my perspective and see if it resonates with you or not. I find that almost every time I'm having anything that I don't wish, a negative emotion that's not peaceful, you know where it comes from? It comes from thinking too much. I can't believe they did that to me. They made me look bad, therefore, and it usually comes down to, they're going to make me look bad, so I'm not going to be accepted, or they're going to make me look bad, so I might lose my job, or something like that. It's just completely made up. So, step one, drop out of the head. Drop down out of the head and into the body. To me, that's step number one. If we get into the body, we get into the sensations. The body is always here right now, and the sensations you feel right now are here right now. And the story about what happened or what's going to happen isn't here. It's some other time or place. And most of the things that take us out of peace are about stories that aren't here now. They're about what happened or what's going to happen. So I find dropping out of the head, dropping out of the story, can I get into the body and just feel the body? Maybe in the center of the body. Maybe if it's a lot, I drop down to the feet, feel how they touch the floor. I feel how I'm sitting on the chair, that interface, my back against the chair. Whatever I can do to feel the body. And then I can feel the frequency I'm with. What am I feeling right now? Is it joy? Is it pride? What is it? And sometimes just recognizing it. Sometimes just saying, whoa, this is a certain way I feel. I didn't realize I felt that way. And just recognizing it. And then even the awareness itself begins a shift. And when you do this over and over, I find I start making a habit of just checking in. There's a monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, that had his monastery. Every hour on the hour, he would ring a bell. And everyone in the monastery, you just pause right where you are. Whatever you're doing, doesn't matter what you're doing, just pause. And just check in for 30 seconds. Drop back into the body and just feel. And practicing that over and over again, can I extend that awareness? Can I have moment to moment? And it is something that practice is very helpful for. And then I've got it listed here at the end. It's not really a different step. It's all of these steps. But it's a very unique one, is the seated practice. To me, it's where the rubber meets the road. And really feeling and cultivating. What we do here, sit calmly, quietly, samatha, calming, cooling, and just feeling the sensations in the body. So I ask you, what if? So what if peace has nothing to do with other people? Doesn't depend on others or other people changing? And what if clarity and compassion is available right here, right now? And that's true all the time. What if that were so? So I will invite you, you're going to always take a deep breath and feel. And as I walk, I like to feel the soles of my feet, particularly under stressful times. Because what if you ask yourself in each moment, how do I want to show up? How do I want to resonate? Who do I want to be? For myself, for other people. Do I want to be carried away? Or do I want to be able to sit on a riverbank in my mind and watch the joy like a leaf slowly going down the river and tumbling over the small little white waterfalls? I know the joy is coming. And as it comes, it goes, and it drifts away. And so does the emotions that are negative. They come and they go. Can I allow the joy to rise and fall and know that this too shall pass? And so too with the other emotions. And stay present as you do that. So rather than being swept away by Vedana, can we give ourselves that quick pause? Stay in the body, feel, and gives ourselves the quick pause and watch the rising, a short sustaining, and the falling of every emotion we ever have. And to me, that is a great way to apply the middle way in its concept to our daily lives. Because I could see there with my friend how strongly he was pulling for the red or the blue team. And we can all jump on the sides and pull for our team. But what are we doing when we do so? So as I do that, I'm just sharing. Just sharing. So I'm hoping this is of benefit to you. So I want to take a moment just to ask you, what do you get from this? Who has an experience? Anybody? So it'll be a question time. Question and sharing. Yes.
I love your middle way concept because I find that there is so much separation, like not only in life but even internal separation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always just two sides going against each other.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's not the only option. Like you said, there's another option. So I like that. And I feel like we don't always see that other option.
Mm.
Like to kind of bridge the gap between the two sides.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Very much.
I love the
What?
practical way that you applied it, which is that drop out, drop in.
Mm-hmm.
That's so helpful in terms of just a very practical way to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was? Drop out, drop in? I just
That's a great phrase. You coined that phrase for me. But dropping out of the head and dropping into the body.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. How does this resonate with anyone? Nat?
There's something that you mentioned. It kind of connected with something I just recently listened to. I haven't finished the whole thing, but actually a piece I just finished. It was the diary of the CEO guy talking to Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony Robbins said that any particular moment you do three things. Right? And these are big ones. First is what we focus on, right? And we talked about that as well. And the second is how do we feel about it, right? And the third is what are we going to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And a lot of those backgrounds, actually, there's also something in the Buddhist book that Monkey Michael recommended, like the Buddhist Dharma, where they talk about that as well, how the five aggregates, not the four mental ones, kind of contribute to that. What is our condition? Why do we focus on this? In this particular case, it was Tony Robbins talking about his upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
He was very poor, right?
Yeah.
And on Thanksgiving, they had nothing to eat, like crackers or something. And some really kind neighbor or stranger actually came to his house with 2 bags of food.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now he opens the door, and he's really excited. He got to talk to your dad, and so he calls his dad over, and the dad refused the food because the dad was focusing on the fact that he was failing his family. So at some point, long story short, he's like, don't let your ego get in the way of the happiness of feeding your family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Tony Robbins, he said years later, he realized that he was focused on the happiness and the thankfulness of having food, but his dad was focusing on the past, patterns of the past, perspective of how he felt about himself. And so even though there's this kind stranger that was offering him food, his ego was getting in the way because of the way that he framed the situation, the conditioning behind how he felt about himself and how he viewed it. So yeah, I think that's really important to understand. To try to understand your biases so that you're just more aware of them. You can navigate, as you said, in a way that you really want to use.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely, because I've familiar with some of his work, met Tony Robbins, and what he taught is the triad, your focus, your energy state. And when you look at a lot of his training, my teacher actually trained with Tony Robbins directly in the 80s, and it was in NLP. And when you actually look at what they teach, I was looking at this whole thing, their model, their mental model. I said, oh, that's the five aggregates. It's really interesting. They basically model it all off that. It's very true. Very true.
In the
Right. Yeah, it's the condition where we see something and it's truth, and it feel like ultimate truth, even though there are so many ways to view so many things, really everything. Yeah, yeah. That's what I took from that teaching too. Yeah, very much. Yeah. Anyone else have anything they want to share? Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. There was a study, I think, in San Francisco. It's been maybe 15 or 20 years ago, and they taught the students meditation and the test scores. And this is like a proper study, not just you teach a couple people and those two, their test scores went up, but it was a statistically significant study. And really, it was overwhelming, the increase in test scores and anything. And that's something we could all use, that little bit of separation. And I agree that sometimes the earlier we learn that, we don't get, it can maybe help prevent bad habits. Because I know I got a few. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. All right.
Anything else?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say great speech, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you all very much. Thank you.